you might have an impression of George Zimmerman. Stand for a second. You might have an impression of him because he's sitting at the defense table. And that maybe, as we talked about, he's not just a citizen accused, but maybe he is a defendant. Maybe he has something he has to defend. Maybe, in fact, that because the state attorney's office has decided to charge him, he has to have done something wrong. Maybe that's an impression that you have. Why? Listen to the calls. Anger, frustration, hatred, ill will, spite. Get out here and get these guys. I hate these young black males. Or whatever the absurdity is that they want you to get from that. Listen to the calls. Do not allow them to give their words to your ears rather than George's. Listen to what he said. Listen to the cadence of his voice. Listen to what he said. Read those reports. Look at those people who lived through, not many of them were home like Ms. Bertolon, but what they came home to, and then wonder whether or not a frustration in Mrs. Zimmerman's voice is inappropriate or appropriate. There is not a witness in there. Not one, state's case, not one who will say to you, remember George Zimmerman? Yeah, the guy who wandered around the neighborhood, looking around, talking about hey, bring in your garbage cans or some absurdity like that. Not one witness to suggest that the guy who they want you to believe is the neighborhood watch, cop wannabe, crazy liar. Not one. They may want you to assume that, it would seem. And you would have to assume it because you certainly can't find it. So you'll have to assume that this neighborhood watch guy was just some crazy guy walking the neighborhood looking for people to harass. Except that's an assumption without any basis in fact whatsoever. Not one. That what he did was under his breath. As what he wants you to assume within that context is he said it under his breath because he wanted to say it, but he didn't want non-emergency call to hear it. And then he wants you to assume that what that means is guilt. Seriously? Seriously? Here's a way you do that. Effing punks. It's just the fact that he was willing to say it on a recorded call to law enforcement is evidence of non-guilt. It is evidence that he wasn't saying it in a way laced with ill will, spite, hatred, or anything else like that. The person who decided that this is going to continue, that was going to become a violent event, was the guy who didn't go home when he had the chance to. It was the guy who decided to lie in wait, I guess, plan his move, it seems, decide what he was going to do, and when. The state told you that he had no decisions. They dared to tell you that Trayvon Martin had no decisions, that my client planned this? Really? 4 minutes. 4 minutes of planning. And they want you to ignore it. I guess, because if you don't ignore that, factual and undeniable innocence. Because with those 4 minutes, now let's use your common sense. Now let's decide what probably happened that night, because we know the result. So let's just make believe that happened. Let's just take all of his self-serving, cop wannabe created statements and throw them out. What do we have? You've seen the picture a lot. You're going to see it again. What we do have, and thank God for Jenna Lauer, because when Mike Wagner went to her, can you pick out the guy, the potential shooter? She said, no. Go get me a picture. and I'll look at the picture. But somebody who shot somebody, I don't want to go say, I know who that is. So we have this. Interestingly, and thankfully we have this, because if we didn't have this, we would only have the cleaned up photo. The one that doesn't show the significant injury, you know what I'm talking about. The one that says, you know, the nose is sort of back in shape. I don't know who put the nose back in shape. I don't know how it happened. But I do know it did look like that right afterwards. So if Mr. Zimmerman just created all of his statements and we throw them out, we start with this. Because this is undeniable. This is significant injury.